Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And if you're familiar with that image, you know that I tier 3'd Thor tonight on the live stream, so I had to talk about it, had to show you guys firsthand just how much damage this guy actually puts out when he gets to max level. And I'm pretty excited about it because perhaps unlike Ant-Man, I know that most of you share my passion for this character and you want to see the raw lightning damage of the God of Thunder. So we're going to really quickly go through the build that I have, and then we're going to talk about the actual gameplay and dive into that and the numbers, and then we're going to come back and give you some final thoughts and build suggestions. So as you can see there, I'm rocking just under 34,000 energy attack, thanks in large part to my build in addition to my cards, and a whopping 43,600 HP. He becomes very beefy, very tanky defensively at tier 3. For the Uru, we've got mostly 5-star and 4-star, actually all 5-star except for 1 energy attack and crit rate, and then some crit damage as well. We got 1 skill cooldown just to get him to the cap. If we quickly go into the details page, you can see I've capped out ignore defense, and cooldown is almost capped. It's 1.25% off, which is fine. And then we've got a very juicy 63% crit rate and 193.5 crit damage. I'm kind of rounding just for clarity's sake. So it's really nice skills with an additional 98. It should say 98% lightning damage. He wasn't nerfed, so that's just a visual bug. The 38 is added on to the 60 that he gets for his tier 2 passive. The ISO 8 set I'm working with is an almost perfectly awakened Power of Angry Hulk stage 11. We've got a crazy max crit damage, 30% lightning damage, 180 proc, but that could still be better. CTP of destruction is very good, CTP of energy is very good, and then a double lightning damage 200 proc would probably be the best, because he could get up to 80% lightning damage from that obelisk. And then we've got the, of course, mythic uniform with most of the options pretty well boosted, with the 2 most important ones being mythic. And I went with crit rate on the last one just because the 500 extra energy attack I think doesn't give you as much as, that's a lot, it's like 7 or 6% crit rate, so you want to get that closer to 75%. As far as the tier 2 stats that we're going to be comparing with his tier 3 today, against World Boss, I'll give you the numbers first. We're going to go ahead and build off the same character setup that we had. We were using Thor with Valkyrie as a team-up bonus and as a buffer for the tier 2 passive effect. We weren't using strikers because we want to test Thor's damage raw, and we were using Lincoln for the leadership. So we're going to go ahead and see here. At tier 2, I was able to get Ebony Maw into his second phase in 35 seconds, so we're going to try to beat that 35 seconds to phase 2. Phase 2, of course, is the one with the big purple circle in the middle. So we're going to start off with that one, and then I'll give you the other one. There's only one other stat line here for this fight in particular. We're going to get guard broken a couple times here, but as long as we don't get crowd controlled, we should be fine. We hit the proc there. Get massive damage from that. The really nice thing about, of course, the tier 3 skill looks amazing. The really nice thing about Thor, however, is the survivability. Huge survivability. So there we go. It took us 28 seconds. So not a huge jump. It's a jump of about 8 to 10 seconds, I would say, over his tier 2 with the exact same setup. But as you can see, very high damage and consistent damage throughout. We're going to continue playing here because the next milestone that I hit was 4 bars. I was able to complete 4 bars worth of damage in 1 minute. So we're going to see with the next 20 seconds how much damage I'm able to pump out. And hopefully it'll be a lot more than 4 bars. Of course, as the fight progresses, as I get more of the tier 3 hits in, there will be more of a difference between the skill damages, between the damages. So you may not be impressed by the fact that it only took about 8 seconds less, but that is with a very short time frame, getting just from the first phase to the second phase. As the fight progresses, you get more of these tier 3 skills in, which puts in more damage, which increases the gap between his tier 2 and his tier 3, which is what you want to see more of when you invest that much in the character, right? You don't want to see numbers that are too similar, a la, you know, Iron Man or Spider-Man or Ant-Man, because then that would kind of make you feel like you're not getting as much of a bang for your buck in terms of your investment. But I already went over the 1 minute mark. I wasn't paying too close attention. I think I got about 5 bars, perhaps 4.5. Not too much again, but I'm just having so much fun playing the character and talking to you guys about it that I just totally glossed over that. But this is just one of the tests that I wanted to show off for you guys. In terms of ABX, I'm not going to actually play through it because it takes quite a while, but I will tell you that in the case of Tier 2, I've been playing ABX with Thor for a while. I was able to get consistently over 600,000 with the build that I showed you at Tier 2 with level 25 gears. And today I hit 650,000 with mistakes, so I think I could have gotten a bit closer to 700,000. So I think with my build, without a CTP, 700,000 would have probably been the max. With his Tier 3 on my very first attempt, I hit just over 1 million, so we'll just call it 1 million. But I think with practice and with better timing, especially timing the 6th skill, I could probably hit about 1.1 million. So he almost doubles his output in terms of score from Tier 2 to Tier 3, which is very, very good. Again, it may not be as high of a jump as you're expecting from someone like Captain America, of course. It may not even be as high of a jump as Iron Man sees from Tier 2 to Tier 3. Large part of that has to do with the fact that Thor's Tier 3 skill, the skill itself doesn't do that much damage, but it adds a lot of additional effects to Thor, and I think especially in things like Timeline, you're going to see his true potential where he essentially can just one-shot every character, and he kind of becomes a mini Jean Grey because with that elemental damage, he just roasts everyone. He just can't revive himself, and he doesn't have as many iframes and healing effects as Jean Grey does. So he's kind of missing some of those, but otherwise, he's a pretty similar character in terms of the just crazy damage output. The other test that I ran at Tier 2 is a very simple test against 13.8 Thanos. I'm going to manually play this one because the AI is really bad against Thanos and it just stands there and takes the damage. The Tier 2 Thor, when I practiced it, and of course this is without a striker, without a kind of ally, was able to complete this in 16 seconds. But that's a lot faster. This is probably a better indication of how much stronger he gets because this is a very much more isolated attack and a much more isolated fight, and it's much faster. So here we can see he does it in about half the time. So you can probably expect your Thor to deal about 40 to 50% more damage overall, and that number will probably creep closer to 50% the longer the fight goes on. It's probably somewhere maybe a little bit less than 40, maybe 35% to be conservative, 35% more damage from Tier 2 to Tier 3, but that number, again, as the fight wears on, as you complete more rotations to get more 6th skills off, you will accumulate a whole bunch more damage. You're going to reduce their lightning resistance, which allows you to do more damage with all of your skills. You're going to be able to ignore their dodge and penetrate all effects, super armor, barrier, shield, immune, invincibility. All of those things will push that number, that increased damage from Tier 2 to Tier 3 closer to 50%. And especially with Thunderblow, the fact that it has that 80% chance to penetrate for 4 seconds, we're getting a lot more characters now. Thor, Spider-Man, Captain America, pretty much everybody who has their Tier 3 ability. I think Iron Man might be the only one who doesn't have penetration. We're seeing a lot more characters being given, he does, that the effect and the skill damage powers that we had characters like Cable, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver getting. So if you can imagine just how powerful those characters and how influential they were when they first came out in the game, especially when it came to PvP, you're now seeing Netmarble, in a sense, try to make up for their mistakes by giving that effect to most characters. Now, of course, it does devalue the effects of invincibility obelisks and invincibility effects on skills and immunity on skills. Of course it does, and it does make characters that heal much better, because even if you pierce someone's healing, they can just heal more, like Wolverine. It makes characters like Wolverine, Cull Obsidian, Hulk just straight up better than they were, because they can still survive, whereas other characters who relied solely on invincibility or immunity, like Black Bolt or Elsa, just get wiped off the map, and they have no way to compete with any of these characters. While it does do that and does lower certain stats and increase other stats, it gives a much more even playing field. So rather than just having a handful of characters that can now one-shot you, you have basically everyone can one-shot everyone. Now, of course, that in and of itself is not that entertaining because getting one-shot feels really bad. But to show you guys what I'm talking about, we're going to take a couple of kind of friendly fights here. We can just do Thor, I guess. Maybe I'll give him a team up. I think I was rocking Captain America and Wasp for this team up, and we're just using Captain America for the HP and Wasp for the debuff so I don't get stunned. He's rocking almost 61,000 HP, and that is with no HP on his gear, like on his uniform, and no HP on his Uru. So he can go way higher than 61,000. If you gave him HP on his Obelisk, if you wanted to, he could probably hit maybe even 80,000, which is pretty wild because that's very close to Captain America. Of course, Captain America can go higher than 87,000 because I have an offensive set on him as well, but it just goes to show you how much tankier he gets. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that you're going to notice for Thor. Yes, the damage is insane. Yes, he one-shots pretty much everyone once he gets going, but more than that, I want to switch, please. More than that, it's the damage, or it's the survivability. He basically can take a lot more hits now and just keep on going. And as soon as we get a hit in, as soon as we tag Wolverine here, he's dead. The other thing I do want to point out for those of you that are... Oh, she has... Does she have... Yeah, she has her invincibility up. I have to be really careful. And she's dead. No, she's not dead. See? So in that fight, it's a really good example. I was able to tank multiple hits from Scarlet Witch without dying. And I think that's probably going to be more valuable to Thor in the long run than something like an additional damage boost. So while he may not be as impressive for something like Extreme Alliance Battle, while he may not have the same kind of numbers that he's putting out as Captain America or even as some other characters in terms of just raw damage, he still has enough damage, more than enough damage, I would say, to one-shot pretty much every character, or almost every character. I think only a couple of other tier 3s are able to withstand him. And again, this requires a defensive build. See, Captain America was able to withstand that only because of the graces of his refinement obelisk, and of course other tier 3s like his own Thor are going to have a problem here. And of course, you know, some of this also gets taken into consideration, the fact that some of these characters aren't tier 3. So in the future, when Scarlet Witch or someone else like that does get their tier 3, that might change the table and change the cards a bit. But at least for now, you can definitely enjoy a character who can take a beating almost as much as Captain America, but also dishes out massive damage. And what's actually better about Thor and his tier 3 than Captain America's is that it's got much more utility for PvP. It's kind of the same argument that I made for Ant-Man. Because Thor's regular skills deal so much damage, he's still a venerable threat. And that's where Captain America kind of falls off. He's not as threatening in PvP. His 5th skill does great damage, but other than that, there's not as much. Whereas with Thor, he can basically kill you with almost any of his skills. He gives himself a guard break with his 3rd skill, and he always has that penetration as well, that barrier immune effect penetration, 70% chance. There's no cooldown, don't worry. It's just because of the interaction with his 6th skill, his Thunderblow skill. And so because of that, Thor is a threat no matter what, and then it just matters that you know, 15 to 20 seconds that it takes him to charge up his 6th skill in order for him to deal with those last effects. And essentially with this, especially with the ignore dodge, the 80% ignore dodge, he can now basically kill everyone in the game as long as he has an opening. The only thing, of course, that protects you from Thor is an iframe as usual. As far as final notes for the build, I would say that with his tier 3 especially, you could go either way with Thor. I would love to see a super tanky, super defensive build that just stacks a ton of HP, even maybe possibly goes for a refinement CTP to see just how annoying Thor could be to kill if he had a heal. I think, of course, the heal would be the only thing missing from his kit that he doesn't already have to make him super defensive, to make him similar to Captain America. But of course, Captain America doesn't have a heal either, so you can consider that. He's just missing the guard break immunity or the super armor, which he would need or would kind of struggle with as he lacks from a CTP of refinement, whereas Cap always has the super armor. But that is the build and the first reaction, I guess, to tier 3 Thor. I'm surprisingly impressed with him, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with him, despite the fact that he's not number 1. I still think that he's going to be number 1 to a lot of people, and he's just super awesome to play. Just, I feel really cool, I guess. Cool sounds like a lame word, but it just feels really awesome to have this character and to see the power level and to see all that lightning, and it really does feel like Thor, especially from Infinity War. So let me know what you guys think of Tier 3 Thor. Let me know how close you are to getting him and how you can kind of vicariously enjoy Thor through me if you don't have him yet. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me. Hit the bell if you don't want to miss any of my content. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.